This weekend at Utah's Sundance Film Festival, a premier showcase for independent films, the movie world will be discovering a very special documentary called Hoop Dreams, which follows two inner-city Chicago youngsters on their quest for basketball stardom. A most ambitious project. The Hoop Dreams production team follows the boys for 5 years, from their freshman year in high school through their freshman year in college. And what a story we get. Here we first meet young William Gates as he is sent off from his home in the projects to a mostly white middle-class suburban Catholic high school that specializes in recruiting black basketball stars.
He asked me, do I want to be a great player? And I keep saying, yeah. He said, for 4 years, I'm going to be on you every day. So he said, you might as well get used to it now.
Elsewhere in town, young Arthur Agee also attends St. Joseph's, but when his parents can't come up with his partial tuition money for the school, he ends up playing for his neighborhood high school team.
If he was going out there and he was playing like they had predicted him to play, he wouldn't be at Marshall. Economics wouldn't have had anything to do with him not being in St. Joe's. Somebody would have made some kind of arrangement and the kid would have still been there. He's not making it like they thought he was going to make it on the basketball court, so he's not there. It's simple as that.
Hoop Dreams runs nearly 3 hours, and the extra running time lets us follow the rising and falling fortunes of these athletes, like when William Gates suffers a knee injury and is tested by 2 crucial free throws in a junior year playoff game. Then Arthur Agee does make it to the state finals, but he's unable because of bad grades to get into a 4-year college.
If I set my mind, I can go. I can go. Get in good college, I can go. But if I don't, I ain't gonna be no drug dealer, cry about it, come back and, stick up gas stations and nothing like that, Probably going to comedian or architecture, something like that.
I'll tell you how good Hoop Dreams is. I couldn't wait until the end of the picture to see what ultimately happens to these kids. We learned that in a series of titles flashed across the screen, but I'm hoping for updates as their lives progress. In a few years, I'd like to see another documentary on them, a documentary on chasing the NBA dream and the often harsh realities along the way. Hoop Dreams will play this week and next at the Sundance Film Festival. I'm sure it's going to be received well there. So let me add my congratulations to those that are going to be earned by director Steve James and photographer Peter Gilbert. They have made a special film.
Boy, they sure have. This is one of the best films about American life that I have ever seen. And for 3 hours, I was just totally absorbed by the story of these two families, really. It's not just the kids, but their families. And we get so many images in the movies of black inner-city characters with guns and drugs and gangs. Here are families that are struggling to make it. You don't hear all the 4-letter words or the 12-letter words. You see dinner on the table at night. You see kids getting up before dawn in order to take an hour-and-a-half commute to go to school. You see them trying to study, and then at the same time you see the way their basketball skills are really manipulated, even at the high school level, before they ever get to college, by people who want to make use of those skills. It's a movie that just raises so many questions and has so many insights.
And on the movie level, these are two characters. I think there are people who, when they hear documentary, they think, they'll back off. You're going to find these guys more interesting and fully written in the ways that we're always knocking pictures for being underwritten. Here are two exciting characters.
Let me just suggest one thing to you. We talked about the air up there, and we said, well, kids will like it. Yeah. I think kids would like this, too. Really like it, because this is a real-life story about kids their
I think they will, too. And I'll tell you, when this kid is shooting his free throws, we know who's shooting them.
Yeah.
And that's terrific.
Now it's time for our choices for the #1 spot, the best film of 1994. And at the top of my list is Hoop Dreams. This is the brilliant and completely absorbing documentary about crucial years in the lives of two Chicago youngsters named William Gates and Arthur Agee, who dream of someday being pro basketball stars. It isn't often a movie takes the time or has the patience to allow us to grow up with its characters, but the texture of real life is right there on the screen in Hoop Dreams as we see these two kids recruited off the inner-city playgrounds and given scholarships to a suburban school with a famous basketball program. The point is often made in the movie that Isaiah Thomas also started in the inner city and also attended this same school before going on to stardom.
Then he goes to St. Joseph High School.
Well, Roger, this is also my choice as the best film of 1994. It's the best picture that I saw. It has the greatest reach of any film. This is an 8-year project by these 3 filmmakers. I've heard people say, oh, it's 3 hours. Well, these guys can spend 8 years out of their lives. Do you think you can spend an hour more than you spend on, let's say, seeing Richie Rich? I think you can handle that. I think audiences can handle that. The story's completely surprising. A basketball shot's a free throw, one of the most boring things in all of basketball, takes on an importance here in just the way you're talking about, where you're thinking about not just the score of the game, but what that shot will mean to the kids and their families. And their families.
This movie has twists and turns in it that you wouldn't believe in a fiction film. It keeps you absolutely on the edge of your seat.
You're right. You're living with these families, and they're great families. Continuing our memo to the Academy, now we want to instruct voters how to mark their nominating ballots in the Best Picture category. And there are 2 films that I think are very likely to be nominated, 2 good films, Forrest Gump and Quiz Show. Beyond that, it's anybody's guess. But my dream for a Best Picture nomination is Hoop Dreams, the amazing basketball documentary, 3 hours long, that is about so much more than basketball. Hoop Dreams follows 2 inner-city kids for 5 years, from 8th grade through their freshman year in college, as they try to become professional basketball players. And I haven't even scratched the surface in telling you their stories. You couldn't predict at any point how this picture was going to turn out. The filmmakers, Peter Gilbert, Fred Marks, and Stephen James, got total access to the lives of the Agee and Gates families, and their access becomes ours. The result is something so rare in American movies, an intimate portrait of lower-income lives, which in terms of hopes and dreams for their children are, on one level, no different than anyone else's, but in other ways, in some practical ways, are worlds apart. The biggest celebration, for example, in Hoop Dreams is not a basketball victory, but of one of the boys reaching his 18th birthday. Boy, does that hit home. Many of his friends do not reach 18. Hoop Dreams is one of the 5 best pictures of the year. It deserves to be nominated as such.
I am 100% with you about this. You know, the category doesn't say Best Fiction Film. It says Best Picture.
Right.
Hoop Dreams is a picture, and it is one of the best pictures of the year.
Sure it is.
And I just hope that the Academy is able to get out of its orientation around fiction films long enough to just look at this movie and to say, this year, our industry, which we take so much pride in, has done an extraordinary thing in producing this movie, Hoop Dreams, and we want to honor it because there are not 5 better movies in the whole world that we can put above it on our list.
Listen, I know there are people out there that are fans of this picture. What I would say to them is, don't think that the documentary branch is going to take care of it with an award, because the documentary branch has historically proven to be one of the most unreliable. They tend to resent films that achieve notoriety, documentaries. They want to protect even smaller films. So if you're going to do something for Hoop Dreams, do it in the lead category, because it may not be even nominated in the documentary category.
I agree with you on that, and everybody can vote for Best Picture, whereas the other categories are more specialized. And you're right about the documentary branch being totally out to lunch.
Moving on now to surprises of omission on the Oscar list. We were both shocked to find out that Hoop Dreams, the Chicago basketball documentary of inner-city black lives, was shut out of the Best Documentary category, not to mention Best Picture. It did receive a Best Editing nomination, but the documentary committee continued its shocking streak of ignoring films that are praised by critics, or maybe more important, receive plenty of exhibition in commercial theaters and are endorsed by the public. The 47 members of the documentary committee seems to be saying, we'd rather help other films achieve the same kind of prominence. This time they ignored a movie that followed 2 Chicago boys for 5 years, from 8th grade to their freshman year in college, as they follow their dream of playing NBA professional basketball.
Derek Zinnemann's layup pushes Marshall to a 1-point lead. Moments later, a Westinghouse foul, and then a double technical puts Arthur on the line with a chance to ice the victory.
I talked with 2 documentary committee members. One gave Hoop Dreams the highest rating possible. The other said he heard that some of his fellow members had trouble with its 3-hour running time. If true, it should be noted that the film editors nominated Hoop Dreams for best editing of any movie all year, so it wasn't too long for editors, which may be the ultimate compliment, if you think about it, for a 3-hour movie. The best thing to come out of this snubbing is that the media is going to spend more time now promoting Hoop Dreams, which opened wider last week. It's now in more than 250 theaters across the country. You take a look you'll be glad you did.
You know, Gene, I was talking to Barbara Koppel, who won 2 Academy Awards for her
documentary
documentaries.
filmmaker.
And she said this committee is in love with talking heads and stock footage, and that's exactly what they are. These old-fashioned television-oriented films with battleships bombing the beaches at Normandy while some deep voice says how many troops went ashore. They are not interested in living, breathing documentaries. And there's another problem, and that is the committee that picks these documentaries is volunteers, mostly retired people, not most of them documentarians at all. But they have 4 hours free 2 nights a week for 11 weeks to see 64 documentaries, almost 100 hours of documentaries. And so they go night after night, and they get to know each other, and they chat, and they arrive, and they leave. And until this year, they had a chairman. This year, the woman who was the chairman stepped aside for a year because she had a film that was in the running. Now, what do you know? They nominated it. It's the Stockholm Syndrome. They're so friendly that, of course, they wanted to do her a favor. And every year, if you go back year after year and look at the nominees, you'll find 1 or 2 nominees that are fishy because the people that manipulate the committee are trying to get their pictures nominated. This situation stinks. It's rotten, and until the Academy reforms it, they have shame on their name.
But, Roger, let me just throw some of their objections back, because I know that they're going to be listening and taking notes on everything you said. Number 1, they're going to say that every branch gets to vote for its own work.
Yeah, but this branch doesn't. The documentarians don't have a documentary branch.
Okay. The next thing they're going to say is you, Roger, and Eugene have not seen the 64 films that we voted on.
Well, I've seen 1 of them that they nominated, and nobody smart enough to tie his shoes would feel that that film was better than Hoop Dreams.
And that was a pretty good film, by the way.
And it was a pretty good film.
It's predictable. They resent success. The one that I'm hoping for, this would be a tremendous upset. They'll be screaming in the auditorium if it happens. I'd like to see Hoop Dreams, that fabulous documentary, win in Best Editing. It was nominated in Best Editing. It was the only category it's nominated in. To me, this 3-hour documentary was the best picture of the year of any kind.
Was, yes. I hope it isn't just given as a consolation prize. Hoop Dreams should be in the regular categories. That's it for our annual special, If We Pick the Winners. What was the #1 film of 1994? Was it Forrest Gump? Was it Pulp Fiction? Well, not according to a national survey of hundreds of film critics who ranked those films high, but one film higher. Hoop Dreams made more top 10 lists than any other film last year, and it was #1 on both of our lists. And now, the documentary about 2 inner-city Chicago kids and their hopes of eventual NBA stardom is out on home video, and it's my video pick of the week.
Sophomore year, I was just carefree. If it could be done, I was going to do it.
When Hoop Dreams failed to even get nominated for an Oscar in the documentary category last spring, there was a national outcry, a big controversy. But the documentary committee argued they'd simply seen 5 better films. Well, hardly anyone bought that. We saw the same 5 films and we didn't buy it, but not until this week were there concrete indications that the nominating process was unfair. In a meticulously researched article, Entertainment Weekly writer Alan Adelson reports that some committee members, after warning that Hoop Dreams would win if it was nominated, deliberately gave the movie their lowest possible scores to force it off the ballot altogether. Since the Hoop Dreams fiasco, the Motion Picture Academy has announced reforms of the documentary procedure, but this magazine article raises the question of whether this year's documentary nominations and results should be disqualified and the race run again on a level playing field. That might not be a bad idea.